Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana. Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Ashtotter, that Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Ashtotter, that Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, 1 second. Okay. So on this 28th day of September 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 7 entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 6 on page 311 in most of your books. You have it? Okay. Eta Yonini Bhutani Sarvaniti Upadaraya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavah Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani Sarvani Tubadharaya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavah Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani Sarvani Tubadharaya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavah Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani Sarvani Tubadharaya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavah Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani Sarvani Chupadharaya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavak Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani
Sarvanitya Upadharya
Sarvani Chubadharya
Aham Krishnasya Jagata
Aham Krishnasya Jagatah
Prabhava Pralayastata
Prabhavak Pralayastata Etadhyonini Bhutani Sarvani Chubadharya Aham Krishnasya Jagatah Prabhavak Pralayastata. Etad, these two natures, Yonini, whose source of birth, Bhutani, everything created, Sarvani, all, iti, thus, Upadharya. No, Aham, I, Krishnasya, all-inclusive, Jagatah, of the world, Prabhavah, the source of manifestation, Pralayaha, annihilation, Tata, as well as. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, all created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Purport. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because that superior energy, spirit soul, is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the supersoul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord, and consequently the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city. But he cannot be the cause of a big universe. The cause of the big universe is the big soul or the super soul. And Krishna, the Supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. And I think we read that last night, but we'll go read it again. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So sometimes there's certain quotations that stick out in your mind, and one I think comes in chapter 13, where Prabhupada says succinctly that real knowledge is understanding matter, spirit, and the controller of both. And that's exactly what Krishna and Srila Prabhupada is speaking about here in this verse and purport. So when he says Etad Yonini, these two natures, he's referring to the previous two verses. In verse 4, Krishna enumerated the 8 material energies, progressively more subtle: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are all inanimate, but they are animated, if you will, when they come together in a human body or some other body. And the spirit is present within, and the spirit works through these material energies. But we are also energy. We are the superior energy. But besides these 8, Almighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So these are the two distinct energies, and they don't mix. It's not like the material energy can become spiritual or vice versa. We are eternally spirit. We never born and we never die. This will come up in this chapter later on. And we are what Prabhupada would call part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. Just as the sun rays are part of the sun, or a drop of water is part of the ocean. So because this whole creation is a combination of matter and spirit, and Krishna is the source of both of them, he's what we call the cause of all causes. Prabhupada refers to the Kata Upanishad here, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, and usually you get the second line of that, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yopadadati Kaman. So what this phrase means, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Nitya is singular and Nityanam is plural. Chaitanas is singular, Chaitananam is plural. So what it means is, of all of the uncounted living entities who are eternal conscious beings, there's one eternal conscious being, and that's the second part of the verse. Eko, that one, Eko Bahunam Yovadadati Kaman, is providing the necessities for all the others. So Krishna, through his agents, demigods, and material energy, is providing the air we breathe, the food, everything that we need to live. But a more direct statement of this is in the first verse of the Brahma Samhita, or like the first verse of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita, which is the only chapter we have. Famous verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigrahaha, Anadir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam. There's a lot of important information in that one verse. So there's many different Ishwaras. We're also Ishwaras. Means that we control our little environment, we control our body, we control our home, apartment, whatever. Even you control the whole city if you're, whatever. But Krishna controls all the controllers. There's also demigods. Indra is a big controller, Brahma is even a bigger controller, Ishvara, master of the universe. But they're infinitesimal compared to Krishna's supreme control. So he's known as the Parameshvara, the supreme Ishvara. Ishvara Parama Krishna. And what is the nature of his form? Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Very importantly, he has a form. It's not that the supreme is formless spirit, but the pure spirit. And it is composed of eternal existence, unlimited knowledge, and full bliss. Now we also have a form, and we're trying to get a little piece of that eternal knowledge and bliss, but we don't have any of it. We're certainly not eternal. There's so many things we don't know. We're full of ignorance. And bliss, sometimes we get a little happiness, but it's mixed with the thread of, pain. So it's anything but full and unadulterated, ever-increasing bliss. But the wonderful thing is that we also have a form like that. In our original spiritual form, in the spiritual world, in relation to Krishna, our form is also Satchidananda. Not infinitely knowledgeable, but we can participate in Krishna's infinite happiness and bliss. So, and Anadir, he has no beginning, but he is the beginning of all. That's what that means. Anadir, Adi. He is the beginning of all existences. And Govinda is very nice, because Govinda indicates his supreme planet and bliss, and with the cows and the cowherd boys and everything. He's not just a very powerful being who creates everything and knows everything. No, he has his pastimes, the relationships, he has his perfection of love. So that's Govinda. And then this phrase, Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause of all causes, which is Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here, and Krishna's saying here. And he says it even more distinctly in the 10th chapter. There's 4 verses that are considered to be the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the 4, and they begin with this statement, Aham sarvasya bhavavo mattak sarvam bhavartate, that I am the cause of everything, everything emanates from me. Now it's interesting, you might think, well, that's kind of redundant, why does he have to say it twice, But one is from his point of view, I am the cause of everything. And the second line is from our point of view. We don't know about the cause of everything, but we know a little bit about the result, you see. And we should know that everything we see, animate and inanimate, ultimately has its origin in Krishna, because he's the origin of both the spiritual and material energies. And then he goes on from there, which I won't get into, but that's the statement. So this is a very important word. These 3 kind of go together, 4, 5, and 6. The material energies, the spiritual energies, and then Krishna's explanation, I am the source of all of these energies. And nothing else, there's nothing else in existence. So this is a way of seeing the world through the eyes of the Bhagavad Gita. And that will continue in subsequent verses. Because that was Krishna's point. How can you develop attachment for me? How can you develop consciousness of me without going through the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga and trying to meditate and just wrestle with the mind alone? And not practical in this age. But this is all practical for us. We can, just by getting this knowledge, we can begin to see ourselves and the world differently. We see that God is everywhere. People want to see God, but they can't. We're not really qualified to see the original form of God. But we can see Him through His energies. Just like the sun. How do we know there is a sun? Because of the sunshine. Because of the energy of the sun. Because, we can perceive that. So similarly, we can perceive and understand the existence of the Supreme Personality of God at Krishna through understanding His energies. That was very important understanding. Any question on this particular verse? Yes, Prabhu. Oh, there's a mic right there.
Krishna Prabhu. So you mentioned sun, and sun, I think is the God we all see from our eyes, gives us darshan every day and goes every day. And if there is no sun, the whole creation would kind of stop. If it doesn't show up.
So everything is dependent on the
sun. Has given
energies.
Some importance. It's like sun god has given some sort of importance in our texts or somewhere, because I didn't hear a lot about sun.
Not so much. In the Gita, we just read about the beginning of the 4th chapter. He was a student of the Bhagavad Gita, and he passed it on to his son, Vivaswan. Vivasvata Manu, who's one of the big managers of the universe for millions of years, and on the Earth planet, his son, one of his sons was Ikshvaku, which I think was a prominent king in this world. So he was also got the Bhagavad Gita, but certainly in the Bhagavad Gita he's not mentioned elsewhere. Maybe in the rest of the Mahabharata he may be, and the sun god is glorified in the Brahma Samhita, and also, I forget where in the Bhagavatam, but he doesn't have a very prominent place, but he may be mentioned, in certain places. So yeah, the sun, and the sun is so important. The Brahmins, were the first, the second of the Gayatri mantras that we chant. Oh, I'm sorry. The first is all about the sun god. It's all about worshiping the sun and praying for his that he will enliven us in our devotional service like that. So the sun is very important. Okay, so moving on. This next verse is or very often quoted. Mattak paratarang nanyat. Text 7. Mattak paratarang nanyat.
Matta parataram nanyat.
Kinchadasti dhananjaya.
Kinchadasti dhananjaya.
Mai sarvamidam protam.
Mai sarvamidam protam.
Sutre maniganahiva.
Sutre mani ganaiva.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Purport. There is a common controversy over whether the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal or impersonal. As far as the Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And this is confirmed in every step. In this verse in particular, it is stressed that the Absolute Truth is a person. That the personality of Godhead is the Supreme Absolute Truth is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita. I just quoted this one. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. That is, the Supreme Absolute Truth, personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.10. Tato yad uttarataram tad arupam anamayam ya etad vidur amitas te babanti atetare dukkam eva piyanti. In the material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is the Transcendence, who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. The impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam. But this arupam, which means no form, is not impersonal. It indicates that the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, as described in the Brahma Samhita quoted above. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, as described in the Brahma Samhita quoted above. Notice he uses the word form of eternity. Other verses in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8-9 substantiate this as follows. Vedahametam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasak parastat tameva vidit bhati mrityameti nanyak panta vidyate yanaya yasmat padam na padam asti kinchid yasmananiyo no jhayo sti kinchit vriksha iva stabdho divadishtat yekas tenedam purnam purushena sarvam. Just one note. You can often tell the Upanishadic verses, they don't have such strict meter. Sometimes, that's the word. And you find in Isha Upanishad it's like that. So.
It's just one sentence.
Huh?
This was just one.
It's all one sentence?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's
One phrase? All of it?
I don't know. I don't know Sanskrit that well. I can chant it, but I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of the Supreme Person. Continuing the translation, there is no truth superior to that Supreme Person, because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest, and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illuminates the transcendental sky. And as a tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. I think there's an editing mistake here. It's not that he is situated as a silent tree. It's that he's situated like a silent tree. I don't know if you can know the difference between that. If he's situated as a silent tree, it means he is a silent tree. But if you say like a silent tree, then he's like a silent tree, but he's not a silent tree. Anyway, that's a fine point.
Depends who's reading it. They could interpret differently, as a and like a.
Yeah, but I'm reading it as the editor, so I don't know if I should change it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So one thing to note is that Srila Prabhupada based his commentary on the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushan. Indeed, in the right beginning of the book, we don't have to go to it now, but right at the first page, he dedicates the book to Baladev Vidyabhushan. The word Vidyabhushan means, it's not a name he was born with. It's an epithet that he gets, because of qualification. It means having the ornament of knowledge, very wise, very learned. He was a student of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his main disciple. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. So, many of these quotes here Prabhupada includes because they're in the commentary by Baladev. You see, and oftentimes there's an effort here to combat the Mayavadis. The impersonalists come in again and again, and then as in this purport here. So that's a major concern because they're the countervailing force, interpretation of how things came to be and what the absolute truth is. So Matta Paradadang Krishna is directly saying here, as he does in other places, there's nothing superior to me. The other verse I quoted, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, everything emanates from me. Just like in the Bhagavatam, he has a similar verse in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. There's 4 verses in the 2nd canto, 9th chapter, that are said to be the origin of the whole Bhagavatam. This is what Krishna spoke originally to Brahma, and Brahma expanded on it, and it became expanded. But the same idea, he says, Ahame vasameva agre nanya yat sarasat param. Before there was any manifestation, I existed. And then he goes on, and after everything is manifested, it's still only me, because it's all my energies. And when I finally wind it back up, I will still remain. And therefore, the person who can say that is the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's a similar statement. And this has this wonderful analogy here, where he says, everything is strung on me as pearls are strung on a thread. And so the idea is that if you have a high-quality pearl necklace, say, you don't see the thread, you just see the pearls. Similarly, Krishna is there in everything. We learn that he's sustaining everything he's present in every atom, sustaining everything. And so he's there, but we don't see him with our present eyes. But without his presence, just like without the presence of the soul in the body is no longer a body. It's just a bunch of material energy. It has to be disposed of. So similarly, without the presence of the Lord, you have undifferentiated energy. And indeed, when it all is wound up, everything is wound up into the body of Mahavishnu, there's no manifestation. The energies are still there in a dormant state. We're like in deep sleep, dreamless sleep for millions and millions of lives. Until the time comes for the next creation, which is basically when Mahavishnu breathes out. You can imagine, Prabhupada said, you can just consider what is the caliber of this Mahavishnu. The whole creation exists for trillions of years on his out-breath, and he breathes in, and then it's all unmanifest for trillions of years. So this is the scale upon which Krishna is operating. And Mahavishnu is just a portion of Krishna. He's an expansion of expansion. So, yes, go ahead. Oh, I'll go ahead, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Just while we're talking about Vishnu, I remember I had a question from Monday's class about Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Out of the 3 Vishnus, I'm having trouble understanding really what that form is doing. Could you say something about that?
Yeah, I think I can give a summary of that. So let's start with what I mentioned, where there's nothing manifest. If Krishna's there, the spiritual world, it's eternally manifest, but there's no material energy. You see. Right. So there's a certain schedule, a certain like breathing, in and out. So at a certain point, there has to be a manifestation for all of the living entities who are not in the spiritual world, who are conditioned. They have to be able to work out their karma and get a chance to go back to God, to become purified. So therefore, there's a necessity for a manifestation, for a material manifestation. So there's a mechanism. Krishna expands as Balaram expands as Sankirtan expands as the 4 Chatur Vyuha. It all gets kind of technical, and it's the second Sankirtan. And so from that second Sankirtan, there's and they're all expansions of Krishna ultimately, comes this what they call the Purusha avatars. These are the avatars of Krishna whose sole business is manifesting, maintaining, and ultimately annihilating the material universe. So it starts with Mahavishnu in the causal ocean is called. This is like the Brahma Jyoti, and so he's asleep. He's in this mystic sleep. And then when he wakes up, when he's starting to breathe out, the universes are starting to become manifest. They're coming out of his pores and breathing, in small form. And they gradually expand. And in each universe, he expands further as Garbhodakashai Vishnu. Right. Now, what do the names mean? It's important to know. You have Mahavishnu, of course, seems the great Vishnu, but his official name, the name in the phone book, I guess, would be Karanadakashai Vishnu. So this Udaka is a word for ocean, and Shaya means reclining. And the name of his ocean is Karana, the causal ocean. Karana is cause. So then you have Garbhodakashai Vishnu. He's again Udakashai. He's resting on an ocean. And how did that ocean come to be? So he manifests, he's expanded in there by Mahavishnu. And he's just like, Garbha means fetus, because each universe has an open part in the middle, but it's surrounded by these elements, earth, water, fire, ether, different layers of them, each 10 times wider, so it gets very, very thick. And there's just a little bit in the middle, relatively speaking. Where each universe is. So he's in the universe, but where's he going to rest? There's no water. So from the perspiration from his body, he fills up half of it with water. Garbha Udaka, the Udaka, and he reclines there on the Sheshanag. There's another manifestation. And so then what happens? Well, the manifestation has to take place. So from his navel grows this lotus flower. And on that lotus flower is manifest Lord Brahma. Now Brahma is a living entity, but he's an extraordinary living entity. He lives, who remembers that figure? It's how many?
311 trillion 40 billion.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. 311 trillion 40 billion years. That's how long he lives. So inconceivable. So he's manifest on this lotus. There's no mother involved. But there's this, it's coming from the lotus. But there's no light, there's no nothing. He said, what am I doing here? But all he's got to work with is the lotus. So he tries climbing down inside that lotus stem. But even though Garbhodakashai Vishnu is the end there, he's not qualified to see him yet, because he hasn't become purified. So he fails in that, and he comes back up the lotus, and he says, I better just sit here and wait for, some instruction. So how's he going to get instruction? But he hears, there's 2 syllables, I think it's vibrated 3 times. Tapa, tapa, you can imagine, the sound. Tapa, 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 which means austerity. So from that he understands, okay, I have to meditate. So he just starts meditating. And after some time, it could be millions of years, but a relatively short time for him, Krishna manifests the Vedic knowledge within his heart. And so no, this is Brahma. Like Garbhodakashai just is reclining there, the lotus, and then Lakshmi is there, So then he's got this knowledge, and this is the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam has this pastime. The second line, it says, Janmad yasya yaton vayada tadatascharte shribhigya swarat. This is describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the second line says, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kaviye. Now many devotees saying, oh, Brahma, there's Brahma. But no, that Brahma without the long A. It's very important to see those diacritics, the whole meaning changes. It's not Brahma, it's Brahma. Brahma here means the Vedic knowledge. Adi Kaviye, that's the name for Brahma, which means the first wise person, the most intelligent, Adi Kaviye. In the heart, Vrida, this knowledge is manifest. And somebody becomes enlightened there. And after that, he chants the Brahma Samhita. He reveals, it's a lot of it, which is a summary of the Bhagavatam. And then eventually he passes that knowledge on to his disciple, Narada Muni. He's the first disciple, and Narada passes on to Vyasa, Vyasa passes on to Shukadeva, and it comes down, just like that. So that's the significance of Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. And then you have the last expansion. You have Mahavishnu was one. Karanadaksha Vishnu is the first Purusha avatar. Second is Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Then the third is Chirodakasha Vishnu. Now, Chira means kheer, the famous kheer. I don't know if you ever had Mahaprasadam. It's condensed milk. So he's lying. He's on a planet in this world. There's one Vaikuntha planet even within this universe, the Dhruva Loka, and on that planet is an ocean of milk, and he's reclining on that ocean of milk, this Kirodakashai Vishnu, and he's expanding into every atom and every heart. He's the source of the super soul. So that's what Prabhupada would call the plenary expansions of Krishna, and they're all involved with the creation and the maintenance of this world, ultimate destruction. So that's the summary, and we have a painting of Mahavishnu right there in the corner, illustrating as Govinda's up there, and then he's lying, and the universes are coming out. You had a question?
Yes,
Comment? Yeah. See, we have a whole audience. That's why we insist on the mic, out there.
Yeah, so in each universe there is one Garbhodaksha Vishnu and one Kshirodakasha Vishnu, or
Yes.
for all the universes one Kshirodakasha Vishnu.
Yeah, for each universe, there's Garbhodaksha Vishnu and the Chirodakasha Vishnu on the ocean of milk, and then he's expanded in unlimited number of
that means
super souls.
Each universe has two Vishnus.
Yes, every universe has its own Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Yeah,
So do they
Chirodakasha.
all have different names in each universe? Like, does our universe have a name for Garbhodaksha Vishnu?
No, that's their name. That's the name, Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Yeah. He may have some other nickname that we don't know about, but that's.
The process of creation in every universe. Huh?
Yeah. And Krishna also, the amazing thing is that his pastimes that he enacts here, how often does he come? Once in a day of Brahma. Now, with a 311 trillion, 40 billion year lifetime, there's a lot of days in there, But his day lasts a long time. And his day lasts 8,600,000 some odd million years. So I always like to think, well, how fortunate we are. Practically, Krishna just appeared 5,000 years ago, which is like a snap of a finger. And his land is still there. You can visit it, You can still see the Leela Stans and everything. So we're very fortunate. He doesn't appear and enact those wonderful, most attractive childhood Leela until, once in every day of Brahma. So this is like yesterday. We should take advantage of this opportunity. Go back to Godhead. All right, let's go on. So now Krishna is going to begin to describe how he's present in all of our daily experiences, how we can see him and remember him. Rasoham apsukonteya
Rasoham apsukonteya
prabhasmi shasisuryayo
prabhasmi sasishuryo
pranabhak sarva vedeshu
pranava sarva vedeshu
shabdake paurushang nishu.
sabdake paurasamrusu.
O son of Kunti, that's Arjuna. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and the ability in man. Purport. This verse explains how the Lord is all-pervasive by his diverse material and spiritual energies. The Supreme Lord can be preliminarily perceived by his different energies, and in this way he is realized impersonally. As the demigod in the sun is a person and is perceived by his all-pervading energy, the sunshine, so the Lord, although in his eternal abode, is perceived by his all-pervading diffusive energies. The taste of water is the active principle of water. No one likes to drink seawater because the pure taste of water is mixed with salt. Attraction for water depends on the purity of the taste, and this pure taste is one of the energies of the Lord. The impersonalist perceives the presence of the Lord in water by its taste, and the personalist also glorifies the Lord for his kindly supplying tasty water to quench man's thirst. That is the way of perceiving the Supreme. Practically speaking, there is no conflict between personalism and impersonalism. One who knows God knows that the impersonal conception and personal conception are simultaneously present in everything, and that there is no contradiction. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya established his sublime doctrine, Achintya Bheda and Abheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference. And it's inconceivable. That's what the Achintya means. The light of the sun and the moon is also originally emanating from the Brahma Jyoti, which is the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. And Pranava, or the Omkar, transcendental sound, in the beginning of every Vedic hymn, excuse me, addresses the Supreme Lord. Because the impersonalists are very much afraid of addressing the Supreme Lord Krishna by his innumerable names, they prefer to vibrate the transcendental sound Omkar. But they do not realize that Omkar is the sound representation of Krishna. The jurisdiction of Krishna consciousness extends everywhere, and one who knows Krishna consciousness is blessed. Those who do not know Krishna are in illusion, and so knowledge of Krishna is liberation, and ignorance of him is bondage. There's a lot in there. So this is a series, first in a series of verses, the same theme, where Krishna takes things that we experience every day, sunlight, water, drinking water, and the pranava, he has that, and any sound actually is him. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam I just heard today. I listen to lectures every day, where Narada is speaking to Vyasadeva in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, 6th chapter. He's instructing him and getting him ready to write the Bhagavatam. And one of the things he says there, he says, Idam hi Vishram Bhagavan Nivetara. That's the first line of a verse. I don't know the second line. But it's very fascinating because Idam hi Vishram Bhagavan, which means simply, this universe is Bhagavan, but Ivetara. It seems to be different from him. Idara. So how is it Bhagavan? Because it's his energies. Because the energies are emanating from him, and they manifest everything we see, including our own selves. But because we're in the material world and we're conditioned, we don't see the spirit behind the matter. Even our own spirit is difficult to see, what to speak of the Supreme Spirit. But becoming aware of the reality of that spirit, and then practicing those sadhanas, or those disciplines that purify our senses and our mind and intelligence, so that we'll come to be able to perceive the Lord. Until finally, through the ultimate goal, we should always remember, the ultimate goal is this pure love. And that pure love, prema, will enable us to perceive the Lord at all times within our heart. That's another verse from Lord Brahma, Brahma Samhita. Premanjana chudita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridiyeshu vilokayanti yang shyama sundadamacinduguna swarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajani. Prabhupada loves those verses. One whose eyes are smeared with the salve of love of God can see the beautiful form of Shyama Sundara in his heart at all times. So he's already there, but we just are not able to see. I like to give the example. When I was a kid, I grew up near New York City on Long Island. And we would periodically go into some of the famous museums there. They had the Museum of Modern Art and other museums that had all kinds of fine art. And so when I got a little older, I wanted to learn a little bit more about that fine art. And so my parents bought me a set of books that explained the different eras of painting and the different painters, what some of the symbols were, and so forth like that. Then the next time I went into the city, I saw like a Rembrandt or something, or a Picasso. I was seeing more with more knowledge. I was saying, oh, I see. This is this era, and now he's using this technique, and so on. So that's what we're trying to accomplish on a more deep and important level. To see the whole world and ourselves through the eyes of Shastra. There's this term, Shastra Chakshus. You learn about Shastra Chakshus. So that we don't just see with material eyes, but we see that, oh, this person is a living entity, and they're eternal servant of Krishna. And just as I know a little bit about it, and I'm practicing, and I'm benefited from Krishna consciousness, let me give them some knowledge in the form of a book, or invite them to the temple, so they can also begin to awaken their eternal nature. Because that's really the auspicious path. Nothing else is auspicious in this world, although it may seem to be. And you can see how, especially Kali Yuga, I mean, all of my I've been around for almost 75 years now, and has there ever been a time? I can't even remember a time when there hasn't been some war going on. Often by the United States is involved, but not always. But there's some war going on, and just like now, there's war going on. And threatening war. I mean, you can't. Is anyone sitting here not realize that one of the leaders of who has thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons is threatening to use them if he loses a war that's going on.
They just ordered iodine for their army.
Yeah.
Because iodine protects you from
the radiation.
vibrations.
Yeah. That's not the solution to the problem.
They're planning for a nuclear war.
But I mean, you can see that the whole thing is so tenuous. On an individual level, your life is obviously, always fragile, and eventually you're sure to die of something, right? But even on a mass level, like millions and billions of people can be killed. So why is that? This is Kali Yuga. The word Kali means quarrel, fighting, and it's going on all the time. So how to deal with that? On a personal level, we should take the expansive view that we want to go back to God, back home, back to Godhead. We want this to be a last birth in this material world. Right? We understand we've had millions and millions and millions of births to come to this point, and now we have this knowledge and the practice, so we can at least make progress toward that goal and hopefully achieve it in this lifetime. So that's a meaningful life. But at the same time, we should feel empathy for all the other suffering that's going on because of ignorance. People are completely in ignorance; they don't know, and they're so conditioned and habituated, and that they don't feel they need to know. Even just try to convince someone that to try to be interested in it. So, but still, it's our duty and it's our mission and service to Krishna, the spiritual master, to try to become enlightened and to try to enlighten others, which is the real benefit. So this knowledge that Krishna is systematically giving here, that I am this, I am that, and I am various things in the material world, by which you can understand me. And this is a much more practical form of meditation on the Lord than trying to go alone somewhere to the mountains. That's what this chapter is all about. He's giving Arjuna instruction about how you can see me everywhere. And don't forget the first verse. He says, Maya sakta manaparte, you'll become attached to me. This is how your mind can become attached. The whole idea is to become attached to Krishna. And that attachment grows into affection and finally love. And that's what love is, this very strong attachment. So that he's teaching us how we can do that. And so many verses in this chapter are very important, enlightening, worth memorizing. Okay, any comments or questions? All right, let's see if we can read one more of these, since some of them don't have very long purports. Okay, so that we read text 8, right? Let's do 9. Punyo ganda prativyangcha
Punyo ganda prativyamcha
tejas chasmi vibhavaso
tejas chasmi vibhavaso
jivanam sarvabhuteshu
jivanam sarvabhuteshu
tapas chasmi tapasvishu.
tapas chasmi tapavritishu.
I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics. Purport. Punya means that which is not decomposed. Punya is original. Everything in the material world has a certain fragrance, as the fragrance in a flower. Now, I don't know if all your books read fragrance. You have flavor, huh?
Flavor or fragrance.
Yeah. Probably use the word flavor to mean fragrance. So to avoid confusion, we just took the flavor out. Everything in this material world has a certain fragrance, and this is one of the meanings in the Oxford English Dictionary. Probably learned English, in the early 20th century, in India. So, but in American English, everything in the material world has a certain fragrance, as the fragrance in a flower or in the earth, in water, in fire, in air, etc. The uncontaminated fragrance, the original fragrance, which permeates everything, is Krishna. Similarly, everything has a particular original taste, and this taste can be changed by the mixture of chemicals. So everything has some original fragrance and taste. Vibhavaso means fire, Without fire, we cannot run factories, we cannot cook, etc. And that fire is Krishna. Without fire, we cannot... The heat in the fire is Krishna. According to Vedic medicine, indigestion is due to a low temperature in the belly. So even for digestion, fire is needed. In Krishna consciousness, we become aware that earth, water, fire, air, and every active principle, all chemicals and all material elements are due to Krishna. The duration of man's life is also due to Krishna. Therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. So these are things that we encounter every day. And if we remember the Bhagavad Gita, then we can also remember Krishna. That, oh, this is just water. You know, water is provided by Krishna, and pure water, the taste in water. Certainly seeing the sun. And if you will, the culmination of this understanding comes when we are engaged in trying to utilize these energies in Krishna's service. So there's pure fragrances. Okay, we'll have the incense, you know, the nice fragrant oils we put on the deity. You know, the fragrances are important, and all the senses. He's going through different senses here. Certainly tapasya is important in Krishna consciousness. Human life is meant for that purification. So all of these elements, when they're used in Krishna's service, they help to develop our original relationship with Krishna. That's the idea. We are constitutionally servants of Krishna. As Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, said to Sanatana Goswami, Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. This is a very, very important statement, understanding. The original Swarup, nature, our ultimate nature of every jiva, is to be a servant of Krishna. We are, by constitution, marginal energy. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, meaning that we have minute independence. Why? Because otherwise there's no meaning to love. Krishna manifests us as these, jiva souls, as pure spirit, and gives us a little bit of independence, so that we can choose to serve him and love him, or if we want to, we can turn away from him, and then we come to this material energy. And after many, many births, we learn our lesson. There was no bargain. Because along with this little control and this little sense gratification comes the reaction. Birth, death, old age, and disease, threefold miseries, anxiety, pandemics, all of that. That's the bargain. Was it a bargain? No. We should try to turn back toward Krishna and enter into the world where we are also Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. We'll resume next Monday with text 10. Hare Krishna. And thank you all for coming locally and remotely. Hare Krishna.